Hello,
Hello.
hello. So I am with Dr. Maria Aretoulaki, and we are going to get into the nitty-gritty of conversation analysis. But I would love, Maria, if you could start by introducing yourself. Tell me a little bit about yourself, please.
So, very pleased to see you again, Ben. I'm pretty sure the first time and only time we talked was in the middle of the pandemic, I believe.
That's
So
right.
it was
Yeah.
a nice break. So, yeah, thank you for inviting me. I'm Maria Aretoulaki. Most people in the community probably know me as the director of Dialog Connection, which has been the company, my own consultancy that I've been running for the past 14 years. But basically, I've kind of parked that in the past year when I joined GlobalLogic.
Mhm.
And I had the voice and conversational AI practice, I guess you could call it. Yeah, designing voice bots and chatbots, etc., and everything else that comes with that, professional services, etc.
Yeah.
And I guess as a background, I am one of the ancient conversation
Not ancient. You
designers.
said you weren't going to say ancient.
I
Yeah.
mean, literally, I started last century, so that makes me ancient. So yeah, I've been designing mainly voice user interfaces, but also other natural language interfaces, including more recently chatbots and voice assistants. But yeah, voice user interfaces for the past 25 years. I've been in NLP, NLU, AI, neural networks for the past 30 years. And I guess, and originally I was a linguist. So
Yeah.
hopefully my perspective will be interesting to some people because I guess I have both the linguist and the engineer, machine learning, whatever strains in me.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. I think, definitely people are going to find useful stuff from what you're going to say because, you
Hopefully.
know, um, I, I I remember hearing that before this wave of voice assistants like Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, maybe around 2010, there was about 200 people who you could call conversation designers in the
Back
world.
then it was called voice user interface designers, but yes,
Yeah, but
VUI
essentially,
designers.
yeah, same job, but for different products and technology, right? Mostly IVR, I guess, and things like this.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you're one of these people with that incredible experience, and now
Yeah.
there's so many newbies, including myself, within the industry who, there's so much stuff which I guess people are kind of treating everything as a new problem, and I'm sure there are many things you're seeing which are like, hey, we've dealt with this before. Everyone calm down.
Yeah. I mean, it's understandable that there is so much movement in the space and so many newcomers because the demand is huge. So
Yeah.
even if I wanted to work on everything, it's humanly impossible. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, some problems are old. Some problems some people don't even see because they think it's a new space. But
Mhm.
yeah, some problems are also very very new because of the amount of data we deal with, because of the new channels interfaces, because of the omni-channel experience, and trying to make smooth transitions between channels uh, yeah, between channels and profiles, I guess you could say. But
Mhm.
yeah, so it's a mixture of old and new problems for sure.
Yeah, no, totally. Even in the short time that I've been involved in observing the industry, it's just rapidly changing. Now with generative AI, it's
Now every week there's something, every day there's something new.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was kind of in like had a sort of kid in a sweet shop feeling at first, like wow, this is amazing, and now I'm starting to feel like, well,
What does that mean? Yeah.
if I follow the hype too much, I'm going to lose my head. I need to get grounded in this as much as I can all the time. And so part of that is speaking to you.
Excellent.
So can I start with the wee easy questions to get rolling?
The 30 seconds go.
Exactly, exactly.
Thankfully, I've written them down so that we stay in 30 seconds, but yeah, fire away.
Sure, and if something pops in your head as you're speaking, which would push you over the 30-second mark, you will lose no points because I'm
Oh, good.
not keeping
It's
score.
a relief to hear.
Yeah. So any way you want to answer, please, Maria. What's the most useful thing you use at work?
Language data.
Language data. Cool. Two-word answer.
Next topic. Next question. I will
Excellent.
expand later. So
Perfect, perfect. And so, how do you make sure your copy is good enough?
yeah, if by copy you mean wording system prompts,
Yeah.
then I would say, well, seeing it in the conversation and in the general task structure, if you can call it task, multiple edits, of course, hearing it play back over the phone or wherever, playback somehow, usually TTS. So perhaps also thinking, oh, if someone does not touch the TTS setting, what's the easiest way to play around with the wording so that you don't have to do too much TTS setting meddling, whatever.
Sure.
Next
The
question.
SSML.
We're nearing I don't know. Am I
No,
out
it's
of time?
fine.
Third
It,
and last one.
no, honestly, like any answer you can give is great. I only call it 30 seconds go because it's just the wee questions to start. And I was actually intrigued, when I asked how do you check whether your copy's good enough, you asked me if I mean utterance writing. What other interpretations of copy were you thinking of that come into your work?
Um, I guess I was trying to get the terminology right because copy. I would never call it copy. That's why.
Okay. Okay,
Because
what do you
I
call?
think copy is a terminology from marketing and yeah, copywriting, right?
Hmm.
And I would never call our job copywriting,
Okay.
and that is because if you think about it, copywriting is something that looks good probably on paper more than anything else. Or okay, maybe if it's an ad that plays on TV or whatever, then also what it sounds like and all that. But I would say that copywriting does not usually involve having it play in a dialogue. It's just like
Hmm.
broadcasting. Nothing
Yeah.
comes back, therefore you don't really care what the user is going to say next, and that's why I'm against the use of the copy verb noun whatever adjective.
Yeah. I totally get you. I totally get you. I only, you know, I only use it because I'm sort of seeing that people are generally using it, and so I want to be understood. But definitely, I totally get you because my experiences with like TV and filmmaking where it was screenwriting, writing
Right.
dialogue. I wasn't doing that, but I was editing the actors' recordings afterwards, and so I totally get you. Like, what would you call the utterance writing?
I guess it has always been called, or before in the old world, in the
Uh-huh.
old world order, it used to be called system prompt wording.
Okay. Wow,
So
that's a long one
but
now.
I mean it's like, yeah, or system prompt writing system prompt word. Usually you say prompt wording, but prompt, I mean, maybe it's too specific because prompt means I'm waiting for you to do something next, but not necessarily. So that's also not exact. So system message, I guess, is a better generalization would be to say system message crafting. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I get you. I
But
get
it
you.
talks about how the message comes from a system
Mm-hmm.
rather than copywriting in general, which would be what the marketing department of an organization may write. And very often, if you need to play back like I don't know, a legal disclaimer inside the system, then the copy will probably be copy from the marketing department. But then you, as the designer, you need to modify that as much as you're allowed to,
Hmm.
make it not too long, not too, so that it doesn't also sound confusing, or yeah.
Yeah, totally,
So
totally.
that's
Because
why there's the distinction between message writing, if you want, and copywriting.
yeah, this is great. This is great. I mean, these are wonderful insights because
And we're
I
still in the second question.
no, it's totally fine. It's
The
totally
30
fine.
seconds are long.
No, yeah, I guess I love that with these tiny questions we can elaborate into much bigger discussions. But like the reasoning for what you're saying makes perfect sense to me. Um,
I'm
and I
glad.
think, yeah, no, totally, totally. And as you're saying, like with the legal copy, like we might need to have a disclaimer. That works. In fact, it doesn't really work on radio, but you can tune it out. At the end of a radio advert, they go,
Oh,
blah, 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 blah.
I've not exactly. You played it fast. You can't understand a word, but they need to
Yeah,
play it, so they do. So,
yeah,
but yeah, I think
exactly.
it's good if we keep that distinction, because we always. Yeah, I mean, the marketing department always has to read through whatever the designer writes, and say, okay, that's not okay. So it's better to keep that separation of responsibilities, I guess, so that
Hmm.
we always know who wrote something.
Yeah,
This
I
is
get you.
copied from the legal department. The designer does that. Is the legal department okay with that? Yes, no. How can we change it? What can a good compromise be? And
Yeah, I get you. The words dialogue designer just popped in my head. I
exactly.
feel
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's essentially where we're at, right? Okay, I'll move you on because I'm stalling you.
Who
So,
would have thought?
yeah, yeah, I do this. I'm sorry. Uh, so, please, Maria, what surprised you most when you first started designing conversations?
Yeah, I love that. How unpredictable human language use is, and more entertainingly, how creative people are with swear words.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Because in my when I first started as a theoretical linguist, I was amazed by the different the different aspects of language, the different functions of language, with the uh, the phonetics and the phonology and the semantics and the morphology and the grammar and the pragmatic sociolinguistics, all of these things. But then when I started working on language interfaces, meaning in the beginning, we didn't really have data as we do
Yeah.
now. So you would write grammars manually. I think the user is going to ask for whatever their account balance this way, and then you would hope for the best, and then you would see how the system was performing or not, and listening back to the recordings of what people actually said, and then you thought, oh yeah, I should have thought of that, and then you try to adjust your manual grammar. But later on, with the speech IVR world that I'm mainly familiar with, because speech IVR, most people think about, the people who do know what an IVR is, interactive voice response system. First of all, I guess voice response was in the beginning probably only used for referring to what the system was doing, not what the user was doing. So the user was only pressing buttons, but it
Hmm.
was a voice response in that the system would say, hello, please press button, whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's like 20, 30 years ago, because in the past more than 15 years you have natural language, like natural language called steering, natural language spontaneous speech as user input, and
Hmm.
the systems have been getting better and better because they're trained and retrained iteratively on the real language data, and that's where I've encountered all the entertaining swear words.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just infinite how many ways people can use a swear word and work it into a normal conversation.
Yeah,
And
but
yeah.
even without, not swear words, like also creative way of swear complaining, I guess, without
Okay.
even using a four-letter word,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I I'm wondering if I should ask you for an example.
yes,
Is it safe?
yeah, I guess so. Some guy said, the question was, why are you calling today? Nice open-ended question. And this telecom user said, because you're robbing bastards.
Yeah.
Or something to that effect with the
Yeah.
robbing and bastards.
No,
And
totally.
obviously, I hear this or listen to it or whatever, see how it was annotated, labeled. And I was like, a nice break, a nice break for the day, with a big belly laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That's one of those users that they want to try to please as soon as possible because they're probably going to
Exactly.
lose them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've basically started talking about conversation analysis, which
Yeah.
is wonderful. So that's what I was hoping to get your insights in. I guess it makes sense to say, for anyone listening, why I realized I really wanted to reach out to you about this because about 2 years ago I crowdsourced responses from conversation designers about what are the most useful skills to have in your toolkit, so to speak. And I remember very clearly you were saying, well, conversation analysis, you need to have this skill. So that's why I reached out to you to get more insights into this and have this interview.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, no worries. Thank you. Thank you. So please, Maria, let's go so general because I think, a lot of conversation designers are aware of conversation analysis and they're probably even doing it without realizing that they're doing that. Um, so, and, we know that it matters. Please, could you, just to start, just to give us a kind of concrete grounding, what is conversation analysis?
So, I guess I would say that it used to be an analysis or description of how people talk. And that means, both the logical structure of the conversation, like, I guess, kind of the semantics of it, or dialogue patterns, like, in, what's it called? Conversation, not like pairs,
Hmm.
interaction pairs,
Like
dialogue
the back and
cues,
forth.
yeah, or how, the um, act and react kind of the question and response, this kind of dance that
Hmm.
interlocutors play. Dialogue cues and also conventions, like, if I say, oh, it's hot in here, you understand that they're probably asking for me to turn down the heating and potentially also open the window, or at least suggest, or ask them, is this what you want, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Conventions, logic, semantics, pragmatics, the pragmatics of the situational context, I guess. But I would say that now, or at least for us, conversational analysis is more specific, because that was kind of the theory, the accepted theory, and what we were being taught at uni back
Hmm.
then, or whoever now goes to uni and studies linguistics, pure linguistics, nothing to do with computers and design and NLP and whatever.
Sure.
That's what they're gonna learn. But nowadays, or for us, conversational analysis, I would say, is analyzing how people talk so that computers can perhaps mimic them in the most effective way,
Hmm.
uh, or at least be able to keep up in a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I get you. And
But the logic, the logic and the structure and the conventions are still part of it. It's just that now, I guess I would say, or for us, it's something more utilitarian than, the grand theory of human communication.
yeah, sure. It's
And that's
something.
why I would say that, to your next question that I just read your mind about, what the goal is, what the
Uh-huh.
goal of conversational analysis is, I would say that, it used to be, I guess it was always descriptive, It has always been descriptive in a way, except for things like, when we say, oh, we need to follow Grice's maxims, then that is also kind of also prescriptive. But anyway, for us, we need to be, I guess, descriptive in the way when we're trying to analyze how people talk and how we as system designers need to deal with that. But also, I guess, in a way, indeed prescriptive when we're trying to make the system behave a certain way. So we still have linguistics, of course, morphology, grammar, whatever. The semantics, of course, semantics and pragmatics, and all this sociolinguistics and psycholinguistics. I mean, this is all kind of merged nowadays. If we're talking about a voice bot that is used, say, by a bank or by a telecom company or whatever, which is the ontology is quite specific. The task may not be specific because there are hundreds of tasks. You can talk about with your bank with 200 different topics, with your mobile phone provider, 200 different topics. But so the ontology is big, but I guess when you're trying to design the system and design the language and the dialogue, you try to capture as many relevant or the most, the 2080 rule kind of, the 2080 rule, which 20 things do I need to definitely get right so that 80% of the conversations are gonna go kind of okay or acceptably okay, if not happily, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I have multiple thoughts. And one thing I'm aware of is that because you have studied this and worked with this, you have the lingo, like things like ontology for me.
Yeah.
I know prescriptive and descriptive, but please, I'm feeling that if this question is coming into my head, definitely there are many conversation
Okay.
designers who studied linguistics, but I didn't. Please, what's ontology?
Okay. So I would say that pretty much everyone who has labeled utterances to teach, the speech recognition, an utterance, these 10 utterances will mean, I don't know,
I
account
want
balance
to,
or
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Choosing what labels to use is basically doing an ontology.
I see.
So
Okay.
if you think, oh, I need to have a slot, whatever, for account balance, I need to have a slot for complaint, I need to have a slot for, I don't know, agent, speak to a human, whatever. Uh, when you're choosing how to label the language data so that the speech recognition system or NLP, whatever, for text input can recognize it, then you're doing an ontology. And
Okay.
when it's for like a general purpose voice assistant, like the whole Alexa, the whole Bixby, the whole Siri, the whole Cortana, whatever, Google Assistant, I mean, that's a massive job because
Yes.
some bits are controllable or restricted enough. Because, for example, for a voice assistant that works on your phone, you know that you need to cover all the phone settings. The system, the voice assistant needs to be able to talk about those, and these are kind of already set. Like if you just think about the manual for the phone, everything is there in categories. The settings for the camera, the settings for the display, the settings for whatever.
Mhm.
So these are there, and you can take those and create a mini ontology for phone settings. For banking and telecom, for a tasks, what do you call it? I guess task specific, enterprise, vertical specific, whatever, voice bot or chatbot. Again, that's almost an easy task because you already know that the user is not going to talk about, I don't know, a film on Netflix
Yeah.
when they're
Or the
calling the
weather.
bank.
Yeah.
So you don't need to cover movies or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, for a general voice assistant, that's much more complex because apart from easy things or obvious things like the settings on your phone, you also have to be able to not only update, say, a shopping basket. you need to also recognize everything they may need to order to put on that shopping basket. So that makes this ontology like almost intractable, because you have to cover everything, like what, all the possible groceries, all the
Yeah.
different sizes of packs of rice and whatever noodles, and all the different I don't know, clothes, types of
Hmm.
clothes, and so it gets much more complex, and that's why no voice assistant can understand everything. They will do their best to, and on the basis of all the speech data that they have collected from us all in the past 10 years, they can do it better and better by
Yeah.
day. But it's still uncertain. It's still a guess, because you can never know what the user is talking about. They may be talking about something they're seeing outside beyond their phone right now, or something they see on a website on the phone, or something on the actual physical phone. So it's so complex. But anyway, all these things are covered by an ontology. And I guess the super fast history is that when AI was in its beginnings in, I don't know, in the I mean, you could say it started in the 50s, or maybe probably you would say in the 50s. But
Hmm.
when it was kind of exploding as a field, and I'm talking about AI, not conversation
Yep. Sure. Sure.
design or anything like that, say in the 80s, people were starting to build ontologies that will model everything in the human experience, uh, including descriptions of everyday tasks, like
Okay.
what do you do when you go to a restaurant, and there will
Hmm.
be like a semantic frame. I think that's what they were called, frames. There was this guy, oh, I can't remember, was it all the names escape me now, but these
No worries.
AI researchers came up with a way to represent, say, the convention of going to a restaurant, sitting down, looking at the menu, ordering, eating,
Yeah.
paying, everything.
Are we really so predictable?
No,
Is
it's very difficult, very difficult.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's there was this guy who tried to. I should have looked all this thing back again, because
No.
there has been an attempt to make an
Yeah.
ontology about the whole human experience, and it's still
Yeah.
growing. It's something like how we model everything in our brain, everything,
Sure.
how to date, how to ask your girlfriend to marriage or something, absolutely anything. And of course, it's impossible, because there are so many different situations, and we're still not talking
Cultures.
language here. We're talking the semantics of something. What is involved, like the convention, and it's
Yeah.
impossible. It's just impossible. It's an
Yeah.
intractable problem, and that's why that ontology has never finished. I think it's probably still going after 50 years.
Okay.
And for us, I would say it's irrelevant. I mean, unless you are working on the next version of a voice assistant, on the phone,
I'm sure
where
they're
they
taking
are
notes
dealing
right
with this
now.
problem constantly, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, then you will have to deal with these things, and still you
Yeah.
need to take shortcuts. You need to decide, oh, I'm not doing whatever.
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
dating, because that's the one they will definitely do. But yeah, but if you're working for a I don't know, for a supermarket giant or something, then you know what you need to model. All the
Yeah.
products, which is still a massive job, because supermarkets, I mean, they sell everything from food to electronics to clothes.
Insurance. Yeah.
And then I guess the task then would be kind of more tractable, because you know what they do. They browse, they choose, they pay, they return, they complain, they leave 5-star reviews. I don't know. There are some specific tasks.
Hmm.
The objects you into, because the ontology is full of objects and relationships, I guess,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
traits. So the object would be, I don't know, an apple, and the relationship would be, I return the apple, I order the apple, I pay for the apple, whatever. And then other relationships would be with the fruit and a higher relationship would be with the groceries, and a higher relationship would be with, you get it, or
Categories.
fresh produce or whatever.
Yeah, I love this idea of the supermarket bot, because I think we can use that to talk about, like, to focus on conversation analysis. If you were given a project to create a voice bot for a supermarket where people were, just as an example, they were able to call it and ask about products. As a new project falls like onto your desk in front of you like that, where would you expect conversation analysis to be involved within this project?
I
If
mean,
that's not too general.
yeah. I guess for me, the conversational analysis comes in as soon as I get any data on what they already have.
Okay.
So, first of all, I would speak with anyone I can from the supermarket, meaning the business guys, marketing, contact center managers, anyone I can get, and
Mhm.
ask them for any data they have on, the market segment, the different user groups, user categories, I guess,
Mhm.
user profiles, and language data that they have. So if they have a contact center, whether I can listen to recordings or at least perhaps get access to how their agents get trained on how to deal with the customer, because then
Mhm.
they may be presented with the main categories of stuff they need to talk about and how they talk about it, including the language specific for that organization. And what else? What did I say? And and also any type of internal knowledge base they have. And by knowledge base, I mean whatever FAQ pages they have, both for the external, for their own clients, and for their employees, like the contact center agents.
Mhm.
Uh, the go-to for when they, the how do you complain? Oh, where's the FAQ page for that? Oh, you send an email here, and then whatever, if that doesn't work, call that number or whatever. So
Yeah.
this type of data, so both data on the processes, I guess, that they
Mhm.
use, the process in place, and any on the users, on the company, and any language data they have. If I'm lucky, they may already have a system in place, even a shitty IVR. If they have a really bad IVR,
Uh-huh.
I can still use that, because if I can listen to recordings from that and see what the system said, what the user replied, and perhaps what they said to the mate sitting next to them about the system or about the company or whatever, I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
I can use all of that
Yeah.
for the design.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so if you were able to obtain this data, like what would be your process to pick through it? What would you be looking for? What would you choose to look at first?
Okay. Usually, the job is kind of not as hard, because usually the company will say, they will not say, replace everything with whatever you're going to design.
Yeah.
This almost never happens. They already have something in place that they need to automate. So
Mm-hmm.
they may say, I don't want to automate, I don't know, the whole, I don't want to automate any of the complaints line. I don't want to automate the browsing, because they can do that on the phone on a website. What's the point of voice browsing for thousands of products? It's too complicated. It's not worth it. But I do want to automate the returns and the orders.
Mm-hmm.
So then we look at that specifically, what the business process is, who is involved, the different steps, the timing, the language, and uh, again, any language data that they may have, how they talk about it on the phone, humans between them, human to human communication.
Yeah.
Even better if it's human to IVR or human to, I don't know, old voice bot that is not very good, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you decide how to model that rather than the whole world of that organization,
Yeah, sure. And
or to
so,
start with that, because there may be a follow on project that is going to try and automate other aspects too.
mhm,
uh, of course, that doesn't get you out of the big problem of most speech IVRs nowadays, and I guess voice bots should also be expected. When they start with how can I help you, you may indeed say, and in fact you should be allowed to say something that is not covered by the voice bot, right? Because
yes.
it hasn't been automated. But you still don't get out of the obligation to be able to recognize that, so that you say, oh, sorry, I can't do that yet. I'm gonna send you off to one of my human colleagues, or whatever you want to, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big thing, because sometimes there is this misperception, and I see that all the time, where someone says, "Oh, I only want to automate returns. Why do you need to recognize all the other things?"
Yeah.
And it doesn't work that way.
As if every customer who calls knows that they can only speak
Only
about
do,
this one
yeah.
thing. Yeah. Yeah. And so if you obtain this data, like you're talking about listening to recordings, it seems to me that listening to the recording is like the best way, because there's no loss of data. You wouldn't go and transcribe that call, or would
Oh,
you?
right. In thing, the best case scenario, you do have transcribed
Okay.
recordings, because in big organizations, they have people, slaves, usually, who do exactly this. They transcribe it, and then someone else, perhaps of a higher pay grade, labels them,
Hmm.
and they do exactly this type of labeling that you're all familiar with. The labeling intents.
Yeah.
Um, in the systems I've worked on, usually you're talking about thousands of utterances, not just
Yes.
like 10 for whatever account balance and 10 for complaint. So and because people just talk, they're so every utterance, almost every utterance is original. I mean, even in 8,000 utterances, you will see that people will still only use the same phrase twice.
Yes.
So it's of course, now with the latest machine learning algorithms can extrapolate, and they don't need to have the exact same utterance in the training data.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's still the best way to use real world data, because and it needs to be real world. Not someone thinking, oh, I would say that, or let's be spontaneous. How would I say this? And I record something, because oftentimes, if you don't have any data, you resort to this type of things because
Synthesis.
you're desperate, just to
Yeah.
kickstart something. But that's
Yeah.
still not good training data.
Yeah.
Mm.
Totally. Totally. Exactly as you say, there can be so many ways that people can ask for something, and it needs to be focused on the actual users who are going to use it. You need that data. Yeah. Um, so, do you ever? I know I'm kind of straying from the questions, but I basically do this every time. So I should just warn my interviewees that questions are just there in case.
Okay.
So, um, if you're so you try to obtain this data, you want real customer data of calls and so on, their interactions, and you would want transcriptions of this. Are you ever looking at that and thinking, this doesn't give me the whole picture? There's something I want to know that isn't represented here.
Uh, Almost never. I mean, I've only encountered this case if there's like a new product or service that we know it's coming out, or the organization knows, it's coming out, or it just come out this week, and perhaps the user, the clients, the end user, the customers don't talk about it yet, because perhaps
Mhm.
they're only just hearing about it. So then I'm saying, oh, how am I going to model this? Nobody talks about it. I need to make up some utterances until we have something. And so usually it's that rather than, it's rare to say, it's like, oh, I want to cover mortgages and absolutely no one talks about mortgages. It's
Yeah, yeah.
rare. I mean, unless you really, if you don't have any conversations and you start from scratch, of course, that's going to be the case for every task you need to
Hmm.
model. But,
Yeah, I get you. And so within the transcriptions, the detail is enough.
you mean the detail of the transcription itself? I think you had a question like this. You sent me a question like that because usually, and I had an answer. I think it was one of your, what was it? Various transcription systems you asked me about.
Yeah, yeah.
What I
Which
found
is,
is the best for conversation designers. Uh, Basically, my official answer was, and I guess it still is, that I haven't used like an official transcription system in 30 years. I only
okay.
played around with that, whatever system, Jefferson system. I didn't even remember it was called that. Anyway,
I only know it from,
I had only played with this type of like rigorous official transcription system when I was studying linguistics, but for
Mhm.
actually using it when you analyze conversations for a commercial system, you only need some, because the problem is that the more individual marks you add, the less likely or the more difficult it is for the machine learning system to extrapolate. So
Yeah,
if
so,
every single utterance has the same, say if 10 utterances have got the exact same wording, but 3 marks there, 4 marks there, 1 mark there, then it's going to make it harder for the system to generalize. So you don't want that.
mhm.
So what I know has been used for the past 15 odd years is that you always put things like you put stuff in square brackets that is not exactly the point of the conversation, what you're talking, the topic of the conversation. So you put square brackets and put, I don't know, side speech, and perhaps also putting what the side speech was if it was
Mhm.
relevant. Oh, it doesn't understand me or something like that. I would use that, or definitely things like coughing, sneezing, dog barking in the background. This type of things.
Yeah.
Uh, but again, even those actually, in the end, when you're trying to teach a system, you try to not include this type of very individual
Mhm.
variability. So these utterances
Noise.
would come out anyway. So what's the point?
Yeah, I get you. I get you. That, this is really what I'm trying to sort of zero in on. Like, how much do we need to know to do our jobs effectively? Because I, I think because I edited a lot of voices in the past, I'm very into that, and
Yeah,
I'm quite excited
I
by
know
it.
it must be. I
But
mean, it's amazing. It's so interesting. I absolutely agree. I'm just saying that it doesn't help when you're trying to label in order to teach the system how to recognize humans.
yeah, and that's the most important part, right? Like,
For us right now.
yeah, exactly, exactly. What as much as we need, because there's always so much stuff that needs to be done. So why focus too much detail
Oh,
on something?
I've got an idea. If you want to be creative there, you can do so in playing with TTS. Because with
Yes.
TTS, you can use a lot of marking and say, oh, extra emotion here or anger there or this type of thing. And that's why I was thinking that in general, I would say that I only record, the actual task, like user intent, whatever, not even really sentiment, unless it's
Mhm.
like, I don't know, perhaps an exclamation mark if the swearing or shouting or whatever, and side speech and noises that are obviously very audible. If it's just a train far in the background, I wouldn't put that in. But
Sure.
for things like, particularly for emotion, I would say that because emotion recognition is better if you do it on the actual signal. Sometimes it's not in the words, so it's difficult to
Hmm.
capture that
Hmm.
way. If you understand it from the what is it, the pitch or the um all the words have escaped me now. How
Like
loudly,
loudness. Hmm.
the loudness of the utterance, then fantastic. But otherwise, I would say that you could channel all your creativity with this type of detailed transcription
Hmm.
with TTS. Trying to polish, I guess, TTS utterances if you're using them.
Yeah.
Because
No.
now you have voice recordings. I mean, mainly I work with voice recordings, with
Right.
professional voice talents.
Hmm.
But I guess even there, perhaps you could still add some kind of marker between recording, before recording, or whatever, to try and make it more. I don't know. Or because I've coached quite a few sessions with voice talents where they
Right.
record say the basic prompts for a system, and
Hmm.
usually I mean it always includes a recording of all the numbers, I don't know, up to 100 or whatever,
Yeah.
and the basic years, from, I don't know, 2000 or whatever, and days of the month, sorry, days of the week, all the months, and what was it, the letters, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
um, and for the numbers, very often you record three different versions of the, probably also for the mainly for the numbers, three different versions of how you would pronounce, yeah, of each number, from 1 to 9, I guess, or from 0 to 9, and you would have flat, rising, and falling. So
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
for example, if it's in the middle and you have a short pause, then you start, I can't even remember, because I've defined such rules in the past that now I can't think of, I don't know, if you're reading a 6 digit, I don't know, 6 digit account number, then maybe you would say, oh, I'm gonna read it in threes and go 1, 2, 3, where the one is, what would you say it is? 1, 2, 3. Is that falling or rising? I don't know.
Uh,
1, 2, 3,
well, the
and the
three is definitely falling. Like
yeah.
one, two,
So
three.
the two is flat for sure.
Mhm.
The middle
Yeah.
one is kind of flat, and then you play with the edges. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the type of things you could play with to add extra markings, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And it makes me think as well with, there's text to speech and then there's speech to speech where someone literally records their voice and has the prosody transplanted onto a different voice. And I
Wow.
think, yeah, I'm extremely excited by that because when I play with text to speech, and of course we have to use it, but I'm often extremely frustrated that, because like when we talk, the melody is sort of fluid, the text to speech is like this block is this pitch and this block, so it sounds really like the more you add, the less natural it sounds.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's a whole other thing. Well, I'm interested. We're speaking mostly about voice. Because you were saying like traditionally conversation analysis was focused on talk, but in our work there can be chatbots and all sorts of other
Yeah.
modalities. Um, is do you see conversational analysis being used differently in these different modalities?
Um, I mean, with regards to task completion and task modeling and the ontologies I was talking about at the beginning, it's the same, because in order to capture the possible or the expected structure of the conversation, you need to know the task, and you need to know that most people are gonna do this first, and then after, or perhaps offer those options next, because you know that that's most likely what they're gonna do next.
Hmm.
So the ontology and the task modeling and structure is the same. You have the definitely the huge advantage that what you see is what you get. So there's no guessing. Did they just say, I don't know if you know the famous example of um, when they teach what is it, speech recognition, and with my accent I can never do it justice, but I'll try. They say that speech recognition is hard because you could say how to recognize speech or how to wreck a nice beach, and they kind
Yes.
of sound the same. So
Yeah,
there's
totally.
there's always this ambiguity, right? Depending on the context, and that's why, particularly for speech recognition, the context is everything. The amount of the funny things I see whenever I dictate to my phone, it's like how did you come up with this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But what with chatbots, it's there. There is no ambiguity. The only problem with chatbots or chatbot text input is that very often people type, use the text or SMS
Mm-hmm.
language, so they
Mm-hmm.
drop vowels and they shorten all that. Grammaticality goes out of the window anyway. But even the words are not whole. So when you try to model that, you need to uh, built in, I guess, the same word but with the vowels missing, or apostrophes missing and stuff like that, and also um, like typos. The it's with and without apostrophe, the there, whatever.
Yeah,
The they, all the different ones that people get wrong, and when they type fast and to a chatbot, they don't care anyway. It's not their teacher, it's not as if they're gonna get a bad mark. But yeah,
no,
the
exactly.
chatbot to work, it's best if we have already modeled it. But yeah, otherwise, I would say that the chatbots are more straightforward, and you can do, I guess, more things with them because, first of all, there is no ambiguity usually. Secondly, you can offer options like these visual cues for the next option rather than say, what would you like to do now? Would you like to do that, or that? You just see them as buttons,
Mm-hmm.
and they may just click on it, or they may voice something, or sorry, not voice, probably type
Mm-hmm.
something else. Uh, and you can use the FAQs for ready-made options at every step. So I guess chatbots are more multimodal because you can also, click on something and have a web page open and all these things. So there's
Yeah.
less ambiguity and more omni-channel, multimodal user experience.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Okay. I have to focus on something because I feel like I kind of jumped on an assumption, but I never said it aloud, is that when you were talking about ontologies, in my head I was thinking that's basically intent. Am
yeah,
I
yeah. No, that is right.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
that's why I started the lecture on ontologies by saying that every conversation designer is doing
Yeah.
ontology when they write 5 sentences to teach the speech recognition how to recognize slots and intents. And so yeah,
Yeah. No,
your
totally.
assumption is correct. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying anyway. Yeah.
No, sure. I had to check it because exactly you said that, and I was like, okay, it's just I was because I feel like there's even various softwares will use that they don't all call it entities. They
Oh
they
yeah,
use
no, yeah.
different
Everybody
terminologies.
calls
So
whatever they
yeah.
want. Yes.
So I feel like it's important to just make sure, are we saying this? And yeah,
Yeah.
so great. So
I mean,
great.
you can use
It's in my
whatever
head.
terminology you want. At the end of the day, the goal is to predict what the user wants to do and hopefully how we can address it in as few steps as possible. I guess that's a
Yeah.
summary.
But
Because, as I said, trying to model the whole human experience is a thankless and impossible task.
yeah.
So what's the point?
No, totally. But there's another layer, like exactly what you're saying. But there's also the discussion amongst people in the industry of what
All
we're
right.
talking about. Like we're discussing the models and making sure that we're all on the same page of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because if we misunderstand each other here, then that
There's
just
no hope.
propagates. Yeah, it propagates out
No,
to all
that's
the
right.
people
Yeah.
using this stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, fantastic. Maria, this is totally like fantastic, wonderful stuff. I feel like there's loads in here, and I've kept you for a long time now.
No,
Is
it's
there
been
anyone?
fun.
Well, there's one more question. I'm not letting you
Oh,
go
okay.
just yet.
Okay.
Sorry. Uh, uh, where would you recommend people learn more about conversation analysis?
Oh
Because
God.
it matters to us, right? We need to understand this. At least conversation analysis for conversation designers.
I mean, the whatever book you can get your hand on, you just need to read one to understand the general concepts. But I think if you're a conversational designer, or you design voice bots, chatbots, whatever you want to call yourself, uh, it's it's important to study real world data, and
Yeah.
that was my answer to your very first question, right? You said, what's the most useful thing you use at work, and I said language data.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean language use, language in use,
Mm-hmm.
because that gives you insight on how people talk, how they behave, and therefore how you can design the system so that you can predict, you can fail gracefully,
Yeah.
as I
Yeah.
say, how you can predict what they say next, and what you can do. You can build in some fail-safe, whatever, for if you don't understand something because you know they're gonna talk about X, you don't know exactly how to deal with X, but you can deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know how to deal with that. Sorry, you don't know how to talk about X, but you can deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess if I need to plug something, it's not my book.
If you want, you don't have to, but if you want
No,
to.
I'm saying that I found that this book, The Elements of Voice First Style, and I don't
Yeah.
know, can you see it actually? Because I want to
Yeah,
show it.
that's Ahmed
Yeah.
and Wei. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, yes, Ahmed Bouzid and Wei Ye, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, Wei Ye Ma, A Practical Guide to Voice User Interface Design. I mean, it's got in there, uh, I'm pretty sure everything I've talked about is covered by this book. It's got everything because it comes from people who, like me, have seen the progression of the, how we've done things manually, optimistically, perhaps at first, and then how you deal with how you fail with real world language data and
Mhm.
requirements and business requirements and whatever. So back to your question, as I said, for the theory, read any linguistics book.
Mhm.
Perhaps specifically, a good book would be any book on discourse analysis. That's what it used to be called in my time when I studied at university. Discourse analysis for the theory and this, I guess, greater philosophical
Mhm.
aspects. And then for the practice, I think this is an amazing book because it's so succinct. It's almost like a little Bible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it covers everything just enough. It doesn't like it's not a PhD on every topic. It's
Mhm.
yeah, I love it. And it also has got this tiny little small format. Anyway,
Yeah, it's perfect. It's the
yes,
ultimate pocketbook.
I didn't write it, so I have a right to plug it, I think.
Yeah, totally, totally. I have that one too.
And of course, I know them both, and I've known them for a long time, and they're amazing people, and they know what
Yeah,
they're talking about.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, agreed. So, Maria, you're findable on LinkedIn, right? If
Oh
people
yes,
want to follow you
yeah.
and see what you're up to, um, is there anything else that you like? Is there anything of your own that you want to plug?
Any of my own. I guess my LinkedIn. I mean, I started. I'm very late in the. I used to write a blog on WordPress that looks horrendous because of all the ads, and
Okay.
I only started publishing on Medium recently. I think maybe the last half a year or something,
Oh, great.
which is shameful. But I guess I try to put blogs there on whatever. But I guess the most up to date stuff I put on LinkedIn. That's my number one.
Yeah.
Not even Twitter. And I really like Twitter, but I don't have time to do all the channels. So I usually concentrate on one, and it's usually LinkedIn.
Okay, super. I find that that's pretty
And
much where it
LinkedIn, I mean,
all.
it's just whatever user, the usual LinkedIn URL and Aretoulaki at the end, just my surname,
Okay.
Aretoulaki.
Yeah, super. Okay. So thank you very much, Maria. It's fantastic.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for the insights into conversation
It's been a
analysis.
pleasure. You made me think about things in a different way, so that's always yeah, it's always fun.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you.